Afternoon. Afternoon and welcome to the Lunchtime Shows with me, Kevin Britz, leading the charge with insights, information, and ultimately effective results. Joining me today is marketing and leadership segment, marketing and communications and expert and co-host, Craig Pagely. How are you doing, Craig?
Kevin, I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, I hope you've had a good week. And just in case you didn't know, it's our 180th show today. Good to see that we're chipping away towards the next big target of 200 shows. And I went back through the recordings to see when we actually hit our 100th show, and that was on the 8th of March 2023. So yeah, good going.
Wow, 2023, 8th of March 2020. It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, 180, Craig. That's most from stats that I know about podcasts, most podcasts don't get past, I think the stats were something like 50 podcasts or something.
Oh, wow.
So the fact that we've got to this point speaks volumes. But yeah, I mean, how are you doing? How's things? Good week?
Yeah, Kevin, it's been a busy week. Some projects wrapping up on big new business drive to try and get to see as many people before the end of the month. Decision making, try and squeeze some more work into November, December, but at least stack it up to start Jan, Feb, March next year, because that's really always an important time. If you're not doing the effort now, you're not going to have the work then.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I hear that, and I'm completely in that frame of mind as well. But Craig, before we get started today, don't you want to give us a bit of a reminder from last week's conversation?
Yeah, Kevin, thanks. Last week we continued on this month's theme of the brand marketing media trends for 2025, and following on from the theme of digital marketing trends for 2025, we discussed 2 weeks ago. Last week we then looked at some PR trends for 2025. We reviewed the article I came across on PRLab titled PR Trends for 2025, the 30 hottest public relations trends. The article was written by Mateusz Rodzowicz. He's the CEO of PRLab and was published as recently as 26th of September this year. We covered a mix of 16 of the 30 trends listed, and for the key takeaway reminders, I just want to read the closing statement from that particular report, which notes the following. Staying on top of industry trends is part of a PR specialist's job, as the issues that matter to consumers 3 years ago might look completely different today. Well, they definitely do. It's also important to understand how specific tactics and strategies resonate with different audience segments at different times, as PR helps to shape the image of your brands in the minds of consumers. And Kevin, it talks about a 3-year gap. Even on an annual gap these days, the approach is fundamentally different based on the rapid advancements in technologies, and as you know, the good old influence of AI in everything that we do in this industry.
So if you want to check out the PR trends for 2025, please go and check it out online on the Lunchtime Series on all your major podcast channels and on YouTube. So Craig, what do we have in store for today's show?
Yeah, Kevin, I want to address another topic that we've not discussed in too much detail before. And while we have discussed the importance and relevance of branding, we've never really covered the topic of brand identity in much detail. So in keeping with the theme of the past 2 shows, we're going to discuss a few key brand identity trends to look out for in 2025. And I want to start off as usual by just looking at some of the different definitions of the topic at hand today. So according to Investopedia, we note that brand identity describes the external visible elements of a brand that identify and distinguish the brand in consumers' minds. Important to note. While this can include visual aspects such as color, design, and logo, it also includes the type of language and the interactions brands have with consumers. And just on that point, the last 2 conversations and trends across digital and PR really talk very much to those interactions that a brand has with consumers. But a strong brand identity is built with a strategic intention to cultivate certain brand image in consumers' minds. Moving to another reference point here, Kevin, according to the brandingjournal.com, we note that brand identity is a vital aspect of a brand strategy. It refers to the unique characteristics that influence a brand's perceived personalities, appearance, and behavior. A brand's identity encompasses tangible and intangible elements, including its history, its name, its personality, and obviously its visual identity. But to understand brand identity, it helps to think about what comprises a person's identity. So individuals are a combination of elements such as their name, their origins, their personality, their values, their beliefs, story, and physique. Brand identity works almost in exactly the same way, Kevin.
Yeah, what's interesting, Craig, I mean, I'm currently going through a bit of a transformation in brand, and
yes,
everything, and it's partly your fault. So I've done a tremendous amount of work on like looking at like what is my brand and what am I doing and how is it being presented, and how do people relate to it. What is that history? What is that personality? What is the visual identity of that? And strangely enough, from doing some of the homework that I've done on my business in itself, is people know me more specifically by my name than they do by my business name.
Right.
So they know Kevin Britz more than they know Leadership by Design.
Right.
So it's little aspects, and I'm glad that we're actually touching on this because it's quite specifically exactly what I'm currently going through. But before we discuss, getting into the discussion of the trends, Craig, what is the difference between brand identity and brand image?
Yeah, a good question, Kevin, and there's definitely still a lot of confusion and belief that they are the same thing in this regard, Kevin. So let's take a quick look at two sources that I came across that I believe help differentiate the two terms. So going back to firstly the brandingjournal.com, we note the following. Brand image is how an audience perceives and interprets signals coming from a brand through the different touch points. In other words, brand image comes from the audience. Brand identity, however, makes a brand unique. It's determined by how people behind a brand want the public to perceive it. Brand identity, therefore, comes from the brand itself. Then looking at one more definition, we note the following from huddlecreatives.com. Brand image refers to a perception customers have of your brand. Your brand image represents how your brand is perceived, remembered, and evaluated in the marketplace. It's shaped by various factors, including customer experiences, marketing campaigns, and media coverage. Again, those are very much the aspects we've covered in the last 2 weeks. Brand identity, on the other side, comprises all the visible elements of your brand that make your brand unique. It's the DNA of your brand and includes elements like your company's logo, typography, color palettes, tone of voice, mission statements, and values. Your brand identity is how you present yourself to your target market, making it easier to align with your target customers' values, desires, and preferences.
Well, it's interesting, Craig, and I think that I'm so glad that you clarified, because brand image and brand identity, I don't think people even separate the two, right?
Correct.
And just to like land that again and like really touch on it, is like brand image comes from the audience, brand identity comes from the brand itself, right?
Correct.
So, and that also then obviously, and from a marketer's brain, you would then say, okay, so what is it that you would like your audience to be saying about you, right? So that is the conversation that also needs to be had from your brand identity's perspective.
Correct. And that's why you use the medium of PR and advertising and storytelling and all those components that come together, but they emanate from the core of the makeup of the brand. And that's why there's some really wonderful insights in the various references we're having today, Kevin.
So with that in mind, what are the brand identity trends to look out for, Craig?
Yeah, Kevin, so wow, I expected to find a lot more content on the specifics of this particular topic, but was rather disappointed as a lot of it, referenced back to digital media marketing kind of stuff and a reduced amount of content that was focused specifically on brand identity trends. However, I did come across two different articles that I want to reference today. And the first is titled 6 Important Brand Design Trends for 2024 and 25. And the second is Logo Design Trends for 2025, What's Shaping the Future of Branding. And that really has got some wonderful insights for us, Kevin. So I came across the first article titled, again, to reference 6 Important Brand Design Trends 2024 and 25 on explodingtopics.com. Kevin, it's a trends platform that I've never come across before. The article was written by Alison Zeller and was published on the 20th of February this year. And the article covers the top 6 brand identity aesthetics that are trending today into 2025. And the article opens with the following statement. Visual content is king right now. Content is king still remains, but it's wonderful to see a change of that. Visual content is king right now. So that's why it's critical for brands to have a visual identity that's able to instantly capture attention and stick in the minds of consumers. And when consumers see a brand's designs, they want to be able to see the authenticity of the brand and how it's actually living those values. They're also looking for brand designs that connect with them on a personal level, whether they be aspirational, soothing, or experiential, Kevin. So let's take a look at these 6 trends in more detail. So trend 1 is immersive user experiences. And here we note that the rise of augmented reality and virtual reality is obviously redefined what it actually means to engage with the brand. And in 2025, we should expect brands to offer more immersive experiences that actually allow us to interact virtually with products and services in a highly personalized manner. And as expected, this trend has great relevance for e-commerce businesses that are leveraging AR and VR to showcase their products in this virtual space. Trend 2 is AI-driven personalization. Again, referencing points that we picked up across the digital and PR shows the last 2 weeks. Here we note that artificial intelligence is becoming the backbone of personalization and personalized marketing campaigns. And by analyzing customer data, AI can curate bespoke experiences that resonate deeply with individual consumers. Important for marketers to understand how to harness AI to personalize that content, how to put in place product recommendations, and even customer service interactions will be crucial in defining the brand's identity, Kevin.
Well, Craig, this is very interesting because AI is data driven and it's a learning machine, right? It's a learning platform, right? What's interesting about the AI driven personalization is AI can now learn about who you are as a brand and also then speak to context and content and create context and content according to the personalization of that brand, right?
Correct.
That's what's really interesting. But you must be absolutely 100% sure that it's actually driving the personalization of the brand, right?
And the authenticity of the brand, most importantly.
Yeah, because if that lands in a way that doesn't sound authentic or sounds like, well, this is kind of left wing and like this is not something generally this brand would say.
Yeah.
You've got to really, because that's where people are going to get tricked up real quickly because they're going to go, well, I can just use AI.
And that's where you're going to erode trust. And most important, you've got to ensure that the trust remains.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So Kevin, moving to trend 3, which is sustainable and ethical branding, we note the following, that brands that prioritize sustainability and ethical practices are still more likely to earn customer loyalty and trust. Interesting, the trust word coming into play there. This trend, however, includes everything from eco-friendly packaging right the way through the transport supply chain. Some of the practices around fair labor policies, etc., all influences in this particular space. And for strong digital brand identity, businesses need to showcase their commitment to these sustainable statements on all digital platforms. Trend 4, excuse me, and this is where it's really starting to get interesting for me, is around gosh, excuse me, the minimalistic and versatile design. And here we note that design simplicity and versatility will dominate digital brand identities. Clean, minimalistic design helps convey messages much more clearly and effectively, Kevin. And versatile design means that the logos, the color schemes, and the typography should actually look good on various devices and platforms. And in 2025, brands will embrace these principles to create a more cohesive and adaptable visual identity.
Well, then I'm winning at life, Craig, because the whole new logo that I've is really.
That's great.
I'm completely in alignment to the trends of what branding is, what the brand should look like.
Fantastic. So trend five is interactive and dynamic content, and here we note that interactive and dynamic content is really what audiences are looking for and what they will engage with in 2025. And brands need to leverage interactive infographics, quizzes, polls, and animated videos to make the user experience more engaging. And this type of content not only captures attention, but also encourages user participation, leading to higher engagement rates, and then also a bigger data set about how they're behaving and using that information, and feeds into other great insights, Kevin. Trend 6, data privacy and security. And we know that brands need to prioritize protecting user data to build trust and maintain that positive brand identity. So it's about highlighting your data security measures and being transparent about data usage, because that will help set you apart as a trustworthy entity, Kevin.
Absolutely. Great. So what are the trends you can share from the second article you mentioned?
Yeah, Kevin. So I came across this article titled Logo Design Trends for 2025, What is Shaping the Future of Branding, on metamorphosis.co.io. Also, again, a source that I've never come across before. And the article was published by Metamorphosis on the 14th of October this year. Again, very current information that we're discussing. The article covers the top 10 logo design trends expected to dominate in 2025, each representing a very different direction in the visual language of branding. And the article opens with the following statement. A statement that really resonates with me is that as we move into 2025, logo design trends are evolving with new approaches to branding. From a blend of nostalgia to futuristic aesthetics, the trends reflect broader cultural movements, technological advances, and the desire for brands to remain distinct and memorable. Let's take a look at some of these in detail, Kevin. And I'm not necessarily going to cover all 10. We'll probably get through about 6 or 7, and I might jump across them, but I'll reference each as we go along. So yeah, starting with trend 1, this is minimalism reimagined. And here we note the following. Minimalist logos have obviously been a consistent trend for the last decade, Kevin, and you can probably relate to that as well. But in 2025, we're going to see this concept definitely evolve a step further. The focus now is on these ultra clean, simplistic designs that strip away everything that's non-essential, leaving logos that feel both timeless and contemporary. Some people would argue differently, but I'm very much in support of this kind of proposition. And what's great about this report is it gives a what's new for each of the trends that we discuss. So what's new for minimalism reimagined? Yeah, we note that designers are experimenting with negative space and subtle color variations to bring depth without complexity. And we'll see elegant line work, small but meaningful iconography, and redefined typography paired with vast amounts of white space to create modern, uncluttered looks. And interesting, I actually worked with somebody who presented a report they did today, took them through the journey on how to create more of that white space, more of the order and systematic approach to information. And I must tell you, from where they were to what they presented today was just phenomenal. It's very much in line with that kind of principle. Kevin, trend 2 is abstract geometry. And here we note that geometric, or at least geometry, continues to influence logo design, but more in an abstract and artistic form. And logos in 2025 are moving away from the rigid grids and structures, but allowing more fluid shapes and unusual forms to break conventions. These abstract logos are visually stimulating, often leaving lasting impression on viewers. So what's new for abstract geometry? The geometric forms aren't always symmetrical, giving the logo a feeling of uniqueness. We'll see that logos combine circles, triangles, hexagons, or softer curves, or unexpected color gradients to bring a bit of that futuristic yet approachable vibe. And that doesn't mean that they're filling the space. That goes back to point one, is that they're still respecting clear white space and bringing clarity to being able to be understood, Kevin.
What's interesting about it, Craig, as you speak through it, I've recently seen a post somewhere or a video of how much people pay for logo designs. And if you do some investigation, do yourself a favor and go check that out, because when you see the numbers and the dollar amounts of millions that people will pay for the just exact right type of logo, it's insane, and it can all be substantiated and reason to why it's got to that degree. So it's an absolute art when people do this.
So I think you probably hit on one of the most important points around this particular not just topic, but this whole sector of the industry. If you can justify the significance of that change in making people reach out on shelf and grab your product ahead of anybody else's, then that change is well worth the investment. But if it's a change where the subtleties are, at least the nuances are so subtle that it's really going to stay in a receding space on shelf, then it's definitely not worth paying anything at the end of the day. And it's about the proof points of testing designs before they get to production, before they get onto the shelf, to ensure that that big investment of that beautiful crafted piece is actually in a testing environment the right standout brand. And when you've made that investment in products on shelf and people are grabbing it, then the brand change has worked 100%, Kevin.
Absolutely.
But yeah, moving to trend 3, which is retrofuturism, we note that retrofuturism draws from the optimism of the mid-20th century while incorporating futuristic design elements. And I quite like that, the aspect of the optimism of the mid-20th century. I think a lot of that's gone out the window now, though. The trend balances nostalgia for vintage aesthetics with forward-looking innovation, blending retro styles with high-tech vibes. And remember, we picked up on this nostalgia aspect when we were looking at some of the Gen Z conversations 2-3 months ago, where there's a big move for Gen Z to go back to really adopting some nostalgia, 70s, 80s kinds of trends and clothing, and listening to that kind of music, because that was gaps in their early lives, and now they're catching up with what our parents and later generations have actually experienced. And I think we're obviously seeing that coming through in the identity design frameworks now. So what's new for retrofuturism? Well, logos in this trend might feature metallic textures, neon colors, and pixelated details that really reflect back to early digital design. The typography, take note, evokes an 80s and 90s video game vibe, quite interesting, with bold angular letters and that are laid in to bring some personality to the logo, Kevin. Trend 4 is maximalism and playfulness, and that's an incredible word. And what we learn here is at the opposite end of minimalism is this maximalism. And this is making a big comeback in 2025 with playful logos and bright colors, complex patterns and quirky illustrations appealing to brands that want to stand out in these oversaturated markets. So while some brands may pare down and bring the simplicity and boldness of color in, others are actually bringing a lot more vibrancy and energy into the identity and hoping they'd achieve the same results. This trend does, however, come with visual excess, rejecting minimalist mantra of less is more. But there's definitely two extreme ends of the brand identity spectrum here. What's new for maximalism and playfulness is that designers are using this trend to express the brand's identity through vibrant, dynamic visuals that may include exaggerated typography, a lot of hand-drawn elements, and layered textures. And the goal here is to create logos that demand attention and evoke joy. So yeah, I'm looking out to see more of that come to the fore. Yeah, demanding an attention and evoking joy really is what all brands should strive to achieve, Kevin.
Greg, but maximal, like I've never even heard of that.
No,
Like
Maximalism.
this.
I had never heard of that either, but I do love the word, Kevin.
But also, and there's a sense of maximalism that you get, that it's pushing the agenda. Like it's like so maximalized that, that you kind of go, wow, that's your logo. So I mean, like, and that's quite the opposite of the spectrums the whole time. But it's, you know, it'd be quite interesting. I'm gonna Google that now and kind of look at what that means.
You know, Kevin, I think the reality here is that different generations, different genres, different age groups will adapt to the different approaches based on their likes, their desires, the things that are happening in fashion and the trends in media and skateboarding and that, versus, you know, the other end of the spectrum where you just want a calmer brand as opposed to a highly energized brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Kevin, Trend 7 is kinetic logos. So quite an interesting segue into this particular, I'm jumping now into Trend 7, but here we note that kinetic design is where the logo comes to life with motion. And this definitely is gaining much more traction in the digital age. Brands focus on building dynamic identities online. In 2025, we're going to see many more logos designed with animation and flexibility in mind. These logos aren't static; they move, they change, and they adapt and you know, adopt to the different environments and the different platforms that they work on. You know, and I'll think back to the early 20s when I was working in, at least the early 2000s when I was working in London on the Vodafone global brand account. This was very much at the front end of thinking as well, and understanding that technology is going to take some leaps, and they designed a brand identity that was tested as long ago as then already, could be dynamic and could actually work in the digital space. Kevin, what's new for kinetic logos? Yeah, kinetic logos may rotate, they may shift colors, they may transform into actual different shapes themselves based on user interaction. And while they still need to work in a static form, the core of design is built with motion at the forefront and offering evolving patterns or layers that come together to create the final product.
Yeah, again, another one I've never heard of. So I'm gonna
Trend 9 is 3D and isometric logos. So again, a nice segue from Trend 7 again. And here we note that as technology enables more intricate designs, 3D logos are growing in popularity. In 2025, we're definitely going to see a shift towards isometric designs that offer depth and perspective while maintaining that clean and structured look. So here, straight away, a very different approach to the maximalism that we spoke a short while ago. And these logos provide a sense of realism and are perfect for tech, architecture, and the engineering industries. And Kevin, what's new for the 3D and isometric logos? Well, isometric logos give brands a unique visual appeal by creating a multi-dimensional look that feels both futuristic and technical. And these designs often include shading and layering techniques that the logo allows the logo to pop off the page or screen.
Yeah, it's it's an interesting kind of like, I've never heard of these things, Craig. So I'm glad that we're actually looking at these trends, because I think you know, and I'm, you know, just looking kind of at the future of what some of the conversations we've had around generational shifts, and you know, how generations that are younger are, you know, pushing a different agenda, and a lot of people who are in design are, you know, of a far younger generation. So I'm not surprised that, you know, AI generated logos and kinetic logos and things that are, you know, coming to the forefront is even you know, part of what's trending. Because if you look at where the generations are, you know, that are coming by, they're pushing that agenda, they're pushing things to new levels, which is lovely.
So just on that particular aspect, you know, millennials were definitely the generation that was totally immersed in the maximalist fashion and spaces, and this, you know, to quote something I've just found now on ET Brand Equity, decoding the Gen Z design aesthetics, it says that Growing up, millennials were surrounded by a maximalist fashion and spaces, which made them rebel against the ornate pursuits of their predecessors. They instead embraced the principles of minimalism, clean lines, muted colors, abundant negative spaces, and tidying up with wide open arms. And it's interesting to see that shift into this clarity of cleanliness and simplicity. I like that very much. The sort of the trends that appeal to me. Yeah. And Kevin, onto trend 10, and one has to have some kind of reference to AI here. And trend 10 is AI generated logos. And here we note that artificial intelligence is playing a significant role in logo design. And in 2025, many brands will be experimenting with AI generated logos, which are created by feeding their AI with prompts and data about the brand, as you mentioned earlier. And the logos can then really range from highly abstract to very functional logos on the other end. And we note what's new for AI generated logos is that AI gen logos allow for endless experimentation and note variations, providing diners, gosh, listen to me, tongue-tied, providing designers with ideas they might not have considered. But what's interesting here about variations also means that the logo could be dynamic, and in this ever-evolving space where today it takes on this particular form and tomorrow it takes on another form without changing the constituent beliefs, values, or positioning of the identity. It may be something that really is very dynamic and looks different in the shape. And in fact, the one logo that does it every single day of our lives is Google.
Yes,
Not
that's
so
completely dynamic. Exactly.
Yes,
right.
yes,
I mean,
yeah. And but just on that, so Ken, just on that, the last point here is that while the human touch is still essential, AI definitely serves as a really powerful tool to generate these unique design concepts and to explore new creative horizons. And again, feeding into Google, it's understanding dates in history, what's happening in the world, Guy Fawkes, explosive elements coming out of the logo, voting days, red and white and blue, and those kinds of things. So really a dynamic logo that takes on a different form, and it actually takes on a different font style in that particular aspect as well. So yeah, we'll see a lot more of that happening on good data feed to talk about the opportunities to the meaning behind those brands, Kevin.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, the fact that Google take into consideration Women's Month and like Gay Pride Month, and there's so many things that are just recognized as like dynamic. But that also begs the question to kind of look at the brand and go, well, do you need a dynamic logo? Do you need is it going to be in people's faces to that degree? So it's also that conversation. So you got to understand whether you need it or not, right?
Yeah, Kevin, that's 100% correct, because the identity serves a purpose. Serves a purpose to the audience. It represents what the brand stands for to that particular audience, and it needs to function in a way that it delivers all of those promises and storytelling to the audience. Because remember, it's the image that the brand has to project. So the audience sees it and has an image of the brand. And Google is definitely, for me, just the best example, because it is a wonderful place to be dynamic, and it's a wonderful place to talk to everybody in the world, because we're all into the Google space on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And that's the brand identity trends to look out for in 2025. Craig, I found you a nice quote for today around brands.
Great.
I don't know who this is, but Lucius Aeneas Seneca. If one does not know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable.
Oh,
right?
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yes.
Know where know where your port is, and which wind is going that way.
And build your brand to talk to the people in the port. Exactly that.
Absolutely. Cool. Thank you, Craig. Please remember to like and share, guys, and tune into the Lunchtime Shows every Wednesday and Thursday for more information from myself and Craig. Have a fantastic week, Craig. I'll see you next week.
Kevin,
well done.
thank you.
There we go.
Yeah, yes. 20 more till the big number. Yeah, great. Look forward to next week. Thanks, Kevin.
Cheers for now. Bye.
Ciao, bye.